Gonna start the Village of Ashwaubenon Park and Rec Board meeting for Monday, February 17th, 2025. Roll call, please.
Chris Serbo.
Here.
Dean Hess.
Here.
Patty Murphy. Here. Mark Castonia.
Here.
Donovan Miller.
Here.
And Ron Mallerman.
Here. We stand for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. And please remember our brave men and women that are keeping us safe here and abroad. Action on the agenda.
Make a motion to accept. Second.
I have a motion to accept in a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Action on the minutes from January 21, 2025.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion in a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Comments from the public must be limited to items not on the agenda, must state name and address, limited to 5 minutes. Board's role is to listen and not discuss the item. Personnel issues cannot be discussed nor individuals named. Board is not able to take action at this meeting. Anybody here to discuss anything not on the agenda today? No, nobody is on the interweb. Okay, we'll move on. Items for discussion and possible action. 7A, consider discuss the 2024 Community Center report.
All right, so David has put together a report. He's going to give the park board a brief rundown of the activities, what's happening in the community center in the year 2024, challenges, revenue, and such. So David, take it away.
All right, sounds good. Thanks, Rex. Obviously, things are getting just busier and busier at the community center each year. Now, almost no matter what time of the day you stop in, we've got some kind of program or different activity going on. Weekends are booked solid. I know for 2025, we're booked solid through
First week in September is our first Saturday.
so already months in advance for our rentals. So I did put together kind of some of our numbers from 2022, 2023, and 2024. So our revenue for our rentals has steadily increased, bounced back from, the dip that we had during the COVID. We even kind of reduced our number of hours that were available for rental times this past year. And we still generated more revenue than we did in 2023, even with closing earlier on Fridays and Saturdays. If you look at the number of permits, this year it looks like our number of permits at that 385 number is down. A lot of that is actually internal booking. So when we book things like Taekwondo or fitness classes, that only counts as one booking. I think we've just got more efficient in the way that we use our software. So that number is not actually really down per se, as it appears.
So like, for instance, how many, like Taekwondo, how many permits would that show up as?
That would show up as
that
one
three?
permit, but it's booked 52 times. It's booked every Thursday for an entire year. Same with line dancing. Line dancing meets twice a week, but it only shows as one.
So that wasn't the case. That was along the same way before.
Yeah, we've gotten better at doing it more so on a bulk situation with our classes. So some of them in the past were done bulk, and some of them were individually put in. Now I would say it's majority of them are put in through a bulk way. So if you look at the better numbers, actually, this 2,184 total uses for 2024. So that's basically factoring in like, Taekwondo meets 52 times and line dancing meets, 100 times in a year. So basically, if you break out the 2,100 number, I mean, you're looking at 6 or 7 different things going on per day. And really during the week, it's more than that, because on the weekend, a lot of times we'll just have 1 or 2 rentals that factor into that number. So I would say probably 7 or 8 different programs going on during a normal weekday is pretty average. Most of our bookings were for residents, 238 versus only 10 paid non-resident permits. Like I said, we did have a lot of issues in the past with non-resident permits and damage and the place being left dirty. So we dialed back our hours that they could rent. They used to be able to rent until 1 a.m. Non-residents can only book until 10 p.m. now. We do have a significant, I would say, non-resident fee. And then also our non-resident deposit for the big room. Instead of being $500, it's $1,000. So a lot of those are kind of deterrents for non-residents over the residents we want renting our facility, whose taxpayer dollars are going towards the facility. Non-residents can only book 3 months in advance, with it getting busier and busier for rentals. Most of it is booked up before that 3-month time frame, since residents can book up to 3 years in advance. So there's not much left for the non-residents to book when it's their window. Some things that I think were successful for 2024, we did put in a new fire security monitoring system. As some of you remember, we did have a lot of issues in the past with false fire communication alarms going off. For a while, those seemed to be going off like every 5 minutes, and not just during business hours. They were going off at like 2, 3 in the morning sometimes. So I'd be answering phone calls from the alarm company at 3 in the morning. Usually me yelling at them and my wife kind of chuckling next to me as this is going on. But since we've switched, we haven't had any of those issues. So it's definitely been beneficial on our end. My main concern when we were getting all those false alarms was at some point you kind of mentally block them out. So I was always kind of worried in the back of my head, oh, it's just another false alarm when, maybe it is actually something wrong. So especially when it comes to fire issues.
So how did they actually fix that, David?
They basically ripped out the entire system that we had. All they kept was the wiring in the building, but they switched out all of the different panels, all the different alarms, all the different motion detectors, everything that wasn't the wiring got pulled out. And we switched from CEC to Martin Security. So it's all completely a different system now. When the building originally opened, our fire and security was all on one panel. Per the new code, they actually want that split apart. So now we actually have 2 separate panels for that too. So we're back to where the code should be.
So then switching companies, that I would imagine that's an additional cost to us, and we got to pay for all that.
To replace all of the different stuff in the facility, that was quite the cost.
Yeah. How old's the building?
8.
Was that
Around 9.
Gonna be 9 years open this summer.
So the came, I believe the funding that came out of the building maintenance fund, the village's building maintenance fund.
Yeah.
The actual cost, like for monitoring between companies, is pretty similar. The good thing with Martin that we're using now is they monitor Village Hall, so we're very, very familiar with them. They're also a locally based company versus CEC that was based out of Iowa. So when we had any issues with the alarm, we got charged pretty significant fees for people to come up here and do site visits. They also didn't really have a great understanding of our facility, not being local. So it's not like I could just call them up and have somebody here that same day. It was like you had to struggle through the whole weekend of alarm issues when you've got multiple permits.
How did we end up with them were they low bidder at some point?
I believe they were a low bidder when,
Okay.
when they first opened. So
Probably under the general contractor. They met the specs.
yeah, they seem to have a better understanding of the whole system and the way it's installed. So like I said, it's been a good switch for us. Every year we try to purchase new tables for our large grand park room. Obviously, with the amount of rentals and different programming that we have, our tables and chairs take a beating. So we try to buy as many as we can, usually in November, December, based on what we have available in our budget. So, you know, a lot of years we're buying, 6 round tables and 3 or 4 rectangular tables. But that kind of splits up the cost on a year-to-year basis versus all of a sudden one year trying to replace everything and having, a table and chair expense that's $25,000 or $30,000. Makes it a little bit easier to budget when you're spending $5,000 on an annual basis and just trying to keep the stock fresh. So
It's a little bit of a catch-22 on the table thing. We don't want to be buying new tables, but we need to be buying new tables. We could get a heavier duty table, which means we wouldn't have to replace them as often. However, if we got a more heavy duty table, because of our system of having the groups set up, a lot of the groups wouldn't, literally, if you took a look at some of the heavier duty tables, like what the Stadium View has, they're heavy. They're like tanks trying to open one up. And so that wouldn't work with us needing to have the user groups set the tables up and put the tables away. So we get what's called Mighty Light, which is a good lightweight table, but obviously they're not a tank type of thing. So they're good middle of the road. A lot of facilities use them, and that's what we've been doing. So, chairs are doing pretty well, and we haven't.
Chairs we haven't replaced any of those so far. So mostly just the tables in the park room. We haven't swapped out any tables in the activity room either. So we've been doing pretty good with the amount of use that they get. Technically this isn't 2024, but I thought it was a huge improvement, so I added it anyways. We did get new laser projectors that were installed in January of this year. If you've been to any of our programming over there, I've always thought that the projectors that we had in the Grand Park room were not bright enough for that room with the amount of natural light that comes in through those windows. So we have new laser projectors. They're a higher lumen count. So our Wii bowlers were actually, they went crazy when we put these new projectors in, because we can actually have things set up and show things on the screen without shutting all the shades and turning off all the lights. So you're actually able to see out into the park and see all the trees, and that's kind of the big draw of that room. So I always thought it was a shame when we had to close all the shades in there and kind of isolate ourselves from the park. So that's been a huge improvement. The good thing with the laser projectors versus the ones that we had before, they don't have the bulbs on them that burn out. So we were replacing bulbs with the old projectors, and as soon as we replaced them, they were already gradually dimming until it got to the point where they were basically, you couldn't even see anything on the screen. So that's something that we're not going to have to worry about. Jeremy said that the new laser projector should, in theory, last about 10 to 12 years. So if we can get that kind of lifespan out of them, I think that would be great. And then I kind of talked about this already, but new rental end times of midnight for non-residents, and for residents, and 10 p.m. for non-residents was implemented in 2024. I know we talked about this at the board level, but there were just from that 10 p.m. to 1 a.m. a lot of bad things that kind of happened in that time frame. That's when a lot of the heavier drinking and heavier partying would go on. So we did dial back the hours, and that's made a huge impact with the issues that we've had. Obviously, there's still groups that don't clean up to our standards, but I feel like we haven't had to call public safety nearly as many times as we had in the past with fights that break out after 10 p.m. or especially after midnight. It's easier for our staff. They're not stuck if a group does a bad job cleaning, working until 3, 4 in the morning. Like I said, I never thought that was fair to our staff to have to. It's one thing getting somebody to work until 1:30, but to make them stay until 3 or 4 in the morning when they've got other things going on with different jobs and family and stuff like that. That was something I never really felt comfortable with. So I do think that's made a huge difference. It hasn't even really been, I think, a full year since we've been able to implement that. I think we started that in April, but that's already been very beneficial. So, and then if you look at our next page, it's just a list of a lot of the different programming that we have going on in the facility. Like I said, we've gotten busier and busier. Rachel Collar, who is our community center supervisor and our senior coordinator, has done a really good job researching different programs that we've been able to offer. Different things. She's been there 8 years. Unfortunately, she is leaving us at the end of the month, so we have to replace her. She's gonna be a tough person to fill that role, but
She's done an outstanding job for us.
for example, like our lunch and learn or breakfast with the expert classes, I felt like when she started with the village, we were lucky if we got 10 people to sign up. Now we actually cap the classes at 50 people, and
We
actually
get
have to
it
turn-
every time.
Yeah, we have to turn people away just because they're providing free lunches. So obviously with our sponsors, 50 is kind of where we cap it for free lunches. We're not giving out 100 lunches every month. So she's done an excellent job with the different programming she's come up with, the different partnerships that we've been able to make in the community, and Green Bay as a whole, I think has been huge for us. So that's been able to allow us to offer a lot more free programming and really offset some of the expenses that we would have with meals and stuff like that. So definitely sad to see her go, but she definitely left her mark on the village and has really done a great job just increasing our programming as a whole. And then obviously she does a lot with the community center too. So between me and her, we get a lot of texts or calls if there are problems with the community center rental. So she's always willing to help out and answer any difficult questions or things that might come up during a rental. So she'll be tough to replace for sure. If you go to the next page, we've got some of our survey results. I kind of always take some of these with a grain of salt. I usually feel like the majority of our rentals are good, which you'll actually see just based on our the rating that we have from the rental groups. But I feel like if there's issues, they're more willing to write comments in for some of the results. A lot of them kind of mention, how great me and Kelly do taking the reservations.
Thanks for throwing me in there.
But like I said, for the most part, I think a lot of positive in there.
I think one of the challenges that David has and the site supervisors, if there's negative comments on there, I'm going to take a stab and say 80% of the time it's for the people that have Sunday permits.
Correct.
Because what happens is you've got permits on Friday night, you've got Saturday, the groups are supposed to clean up after themselves. The site supervisors assist the groups in cleaning up, but it's not like a deep cleaning like we would have on a Monday morning or during the regular work week. So by the time the Sundays come along, depending upon how the groups did on Friday and Saturday, and we work hard and we do training with the staff on what's acceptable, what's not, taking pictures, so on and so forth. Sometimes if a garbage can in the restroom is filled with paper towels, or someone's used up a roll of toilet paper, or there's some water spots on the mirror, that's what typically gets us marked down on that. So
this time of the year is more challenging too, with people tracking in the snow and the salt and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Our staff just has access to the mops, whereas Matt, who's our full-time guy, he's able to run the floor scrubber and actually give the whole facility a deep clean, and it takes a fraction of the time.
Not saying, so it still looks good. It just doesn't look as good as it does during the week. thing when it's clean on a daily basis.
So some of the comments looked like it was a question of if we start at 10 or whatever, is there anybody there ahead of time? And I would assume, and I don't know anything about it, that people would have been there that are supervising and letting in by like 9:30 or so.
Yeah, they're usually there by
15 minutes.
Yeah, 15 minutes early is when they're scheduled.
So that's a part of the group as well. Like, Ron, if you wanted a 10 o'clock permit, you could sign up for 10 o'clock, because we say to include your setup time and your breakdown time within your permit hours. So really, I mean, the way our fee structure is, if you sign up for 10, a staff person has between that 15-minute window to get there, as long as they're there by 10, because that's what the group is paid for. So sometimes people think, well, I wanted to set up earlier. Well, that's explained in detail with them when they're doing their reservation. If you've got a lot of setup to do, then you want to include that in your rental time.
What I was referring to, Rex, is the ones that were talking about having to clean up themselves because of the fact that it wasn't clean when they moved in.
Yep.
So we do try to curb that a little bit. We have a few years ago we started actually scheduling a second staff person for some of those late rentals, just to try to make sure it's not all one person that's judging the cleaning or helping out with the cleaning. So we've added a second person. Obviously, it's still not a perfect system. Like I said, we're dealing more with part-time seasonal people, and I would say some of our staff are better at picking up on cleaning. We've got some of the retired folks that
How many
are
dudes you
doing it.
got?
We got a couple, especially sometimes with younger college age students, their version of clean versus somebody that has a house or a family and is used to cleaning up, can be completely different, to be honest. So that's something that we're trying to always fix and improve on. We have told staff members if the group doesn't do a good job cleaning, we know it's not always completely possible to get it back to absolutely perfect condition, but let us know ahead of time, and we try to sometimes see if somebody can come in like an extra hour or two early in that case, and just try to get a jump start on the cleaning and try to get it as presentable as possible. So we used to, when we had a contracted cleaning company, we were able to do like emergency cleans back in the day. But we just felt when we made the switch that it was better for the facility to have somebody on our staff that we could kind of pinpoint things that needed to be identified and cleaned, with the trade-off that it's be a Monday through Friday clean versus having that ability sometimes on the weekend too. But yeah, I guess that's, something that we're always trying to work on too. So.
Well, I'm just picking up from the comments that were on there.
Yeah, and I would say, you guys also factor in these are the comments from, 200 different rentals that we had. So, depends on how bad, if it was a Saturday night rental that would leave. Trying to get it clean sometimes for Sunday is completely different than with the Friday group encounters that had, Matt scrubbing the floors and wiping down walls on Friday for us. So.
I forget our Sunday rates, our daily rates the same every day, or
yes,
Sunday's the same as Friday.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
For the approximately $2,000 that was withheld in security deposit, was that cleaning damage?
Not a whole lot of damage, I would say, this last year. Some of it was cleaning. Some of it is from people that don't leave the facility on time. Like it takes them longer to clean than they expect. So we'll bill them for an additional hour for that. Few times, I would say more so before we implemented the new time frames, If public safety gets called, they automatically forfeit their entire security deposit. So it was more stuff like that versus damage. I would say, knock on wood, we've been very fortunate in the 8 years. As far as damage goes, there have been times where doors have been damaged. I know some of our lobby furniture has been damaged, but it hopefully stays that way. But nothing that's been
They get charged
just
for it.
insanely expensive. Yeah.
David, doesn't our cancellation fee go into that same pot, or is that not counted in that?
That's not popular.
It's not? Okay.
Yeah, that just counts as like a normal room fee that we get because the full security deposit's always refunded for cancellation. And then if you look at our final page here, they can basically rank us like 1 through 5 for a number of different categories. But if you look at our ranking overall, 4.6 to 4.9. So I would say, for the most part, people are pleased when they rent our facility. I still think it's an incredible deal. I know working with Rex, it is paid for with tax dollars, so we want our residents to have something that they can use, something that they're proud of when they have, a graduation party, a wedding, grandpa's 90th birthday, something that they're proud of to have in their community. Like I said, I think.
And that's affordable.
Yeah, it's affordable.
Because they're already paying taxes on it.
Yeah, so like I said, good thing with our facility, even though it is kind of a do it on your own type thing, bringing in food or drinks, or the setup and cleanup it really keeps the cost down. So as long as you're willing to do some of that setup work, it gives you a good option. You go to some of the private businesses in the area, and all of a sudden you're paying food and beverage minimums that are super expensive. So this gives you the option to cater different food, or grill out, or do a potluck and keep it affordable. So hopefully the majority of our residents have a great option when it's time to have a family event.
So
It sounds like your registrations are showing that it is.
Yeah, I think as the word's gotten out over 8 years, it's just been getting more and more popular.
Dave, I want to commend you and your staff on doing a good job with communities.
Thank you.
Any more questions for David?
If not, we'll move on. 7B, consider and discuss act on recommendation to village board on the bid award for Ashwaubomay River Trail Extension.
All right, so this is the second time around. We initially bid this in July. The bids were extremely high back then, like about 580,000. So the village board rejected those bids back in July, and we rebid the project in December, January. The low bid this time came in from Peters Concrete at $513,000. That is a savings of $63,000 from the initial bids last July. So by rebidding it, we were able to knock another $63,000 off. The challenge on the budget on this project is we had initially, or maybe it was more hoping than what we actually thought, but we had budgeted $450,000. So we were still $63,000 over. So what we are proposing is that we accept the bid from Peters Concrete at $513,000. We use the $450,000 initially budgeted out of TID 3 and supplement the remaining $63,284.35 out of the park development funds. We've got a fair amount of money in the park development fund right now. If we take the $63,000 out of that for this particular project, it will still leave us enough money to complete the new park on Element Way behind Sammy's Pizza. And it should also be close, be able to support the boardwalk installation over at Argonne Park. So, but it'll basically then clean out our park development fund, which is what we expected at some point. That money does have to be used. It can't sit in there for a period of longer than 7 years, and there certainly are funds in there that are getting close to that time frame. So again, staff recommendation, and you can feel free to ask me questions, is to accept the bid from Peters Concrete at $513.
I make a motion to accept the Peters bid at $513, $284.35, in addition to the $450-some thousand that was budgeted, and then the rest from the park development fund.
Second.
Can I ask a question?
Yep.
Does this bid take into consideration because last time we talked, there were some questions about how narrow the path was going to be behind the lake?
That hasn't changed.
That has not changed,
It's gonna
okay.
be a 10-foot path, but behind the lake, it narrows to 8.
Okay, just wanted, and then is Peters local? Like I've seen, okay, like Green Bay local or Fox Valley local, do we know? Green Bay?
I believe they're Green Bay.
Okay.
Just a point of interest, Rex, is there any lighting at all on that trail anywhere?
The part of the bridge project, the bridge and from the bridge to the trailhead is lit. This part does not have any electrical lighting.
So we're pretty much just basically park hours.
Correct.
The sunshine, not the sun, when we get to see it.
Correct.
And is it use-wise, I know we're talking about biking and stuff, is there gonna be cross-country skiing and stuff like that available too in that area or not?
Yes, as part of the stewardship grant, our goal is to be able to make it a year-round trail. So it really is going to depend, I'll be honest with you, it'll depend on whether or not the park and village board wants to plow that trail. If they want to plow it, then there won't be cross-country skiing on the trail itself, although there's certainly people who cross-country ski around the park right now. If we don't plow it, then I'm sure they'll use the route, even though you won't be able to see it because of the snow, cross-country skiing.
So Rex, the 63,000 that is in the park development fund that we're using to finish this off, that was earmarked originally for Argonne and the mini park over here?
When things are in the park development fund, it's not necessary. Some of the funds are earmarked. For Argonne, for Element Way. Quite honestly, there's probably that money, at least in my head of how this was going to work, it wasn't necessarily earmarked yet, but I was looking at, eventually we're probably going to be doing one of the next projects coming up that could be park development eligible is Mike Van Park, because there's going to be some additional housing and condo units built on Mike McCarthy Way. So the thought was to build a backway pathway from some of those apartment buildings onto Borvan, which would go into Mike Van Park, and maybe we put in like a small mini shelter and some additional seating for senior type activities for the people who live in those apartments. So, but that doesn't mean that that's not still going to be there. As long as there's additional development that happens in the village and there's money going into the park development fund, that's probably still doable. It's just, it might take, a couple more years to build up that we're going to be able to do a project with it.
But the two projects we're talking about here, there's still a goal, or it might get delayed a little bit because
The Element Parkway project is a goal. I mean, that bid has been approved and
we got enough money to fund it.
for Element Way, yeah.
With using those funds for.
Yeah. The challenge for the Argonne Park Boardwalk right now doesn't have anything to do with park development. It's more of a Packer thing in terms of still playing around a little bit with giving us permission to go back into the woods. So we're still working on that. We're hoping that gets finalized soon.
I have a motion from Dean and a second from Ron.
Yeah, we have a motion and a second, to accept the low bid, from, for Peters Concrete.
Mhm.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. All right, 7B, consider discuss act on recommendation of village board regarding changes in the co-sponsored, relation. Oops, I knew I was missing something.
Yeah.
Yep, never mind. Consider, discuss the act on recommendation of village board regarding changes to administrative policy for the naming of parks or park facilities.
So this was requested, the whole policy was presented, or brought forth to the park board last month. And then we were asked to make a couple of tweaks to it, specifically adding in the person or group. The person shall have had a significant and positive influence within the Ashwaubenon community. So with that, just wondering what would happen in the future, whether it be in 5, 10, 15 years. I thought, I don't know if we should limit it to a individual person. We could also put down a group because there's many worthy service groups within Ashwaubenon that have done a great job doing things for our community. So I took the liberty, and I apologize, Chris, because I know you're the one that suggested the individual person.
That was a great idea.
So I put in both the person and group and bring it forth to you guys to see if you're comfortable with that simple verbiage change.
How do you see taking out, you have and or, and taking out the or?
Where is it for what number? Number 1, 1A, or 1B?
Right at the end of 1A.
Yep, just before the red. You got in capital letters and / or. Take out the or.
I have no issue doing that.
I think if we look back at the last meeting and Chris brought that up, your concern, Chris, I think, quote me wrong, was to be more Ashwaubenon focused.
Mhm.
If you keep the or in there, it could then be, you could exclude the second one, B, and only accept A, and that wouldn't focus on Ashwaubenon.
Yeah, I noticed that too when I read it.
So,
But then I read it a few times and I thought, I didn't have a problem with it, really.
well,
I almost agree with you, but I don't have a problem.
I put down B. I did the and or because A doesn't necessarily match up apples to apples with B in terms of who that group may be. Because in A, it's obtained local or national prominence. And B is the person shall have had significant and positive influence on the community. And I look at that as being different. And so that way, by having and or, you can, maybe the person has both, but a person in B who has had significant or positive influence on the community may not have had what they're asking, what A is stating, where they obtained local prominence type of a thing. They may have done work behind the scenes that no one even knows about, but that has done a great job. So that's why I did the and or, to give an option for either. But if the park board would like me to eliminate that, so be it. Not a problem.
I don't have a problem with it. I think it makes sense.
I think with it, and like I said, I that was my first reaction to it. And then I reread it a couple times, both A and B, and I went, no, it does make sense, and it definitely does drive the idea of that. I'm happy with that, and I think the group thing is really good.
And I'm sure we'll be using this policy coming up here in the next several months in some form or fashion, because we've got element of the new park coming on board, and we'll be figuring out a process to name that. So.
All right, I'll make a motion to accept this revised policy as it is written in the agenda.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to accept the policy changes and bring it to the village board. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, now D, consider, discuss, act on recommendation to village board regarding changes to the co-sponsored relationships and policies.
All right, so as we have discussed at previous meetings, we have had several co-sponsored organizations requesting us to look at allowing non-resident, non-open enrolled students within the co-sponsored organizations. We met and discussed this internally with the organizations at a December meeting at the community center. They've all had chances now to bring a survey that we asked them to fill out back to their boards for an official response. So I'm taking so we have 7 co-sponsored organizations. Let's remove the special children's program out of that because that's a little bit different. That is joint organization or joint project process between the village and the school district. So now we're left with 6 co-sponsored organizations. 3 out of the 6, in some form or fashion, have requested to allow non-resident, non-open enrolled students within their organization. Those 3, and I believe there's representatives from all 3 tonight, swim club, wrestling, and the Ashwaubenon youth baseball. The ones that did not surprisingly, I guess, are not here, and that's going to be girls softball, soccer, and youth football.
Basketball's not co-sponsored?
Not co-sponsored.
Where do they get their money from?
Never has been.
Really?
Too many pizza sales or other types of fundraising.
Is it? I don't know. I keep winning
Yeah,
money off
it's
those
not
raffle
one-
calendars.
It's
I don't
not
mind.
one- That's not one that's supported by the financially.
I was just surprised to see that. I never noticed.
Yep, they both boys and girls basketball are separate organizations. They're run by their own boards, but not
Co-sponsored.
co-sponsored. All right, so I've got a number of questions here on the agenda on page 21. And then obviously all of the surveys are listed following that each board has turned into our department. So I guess the process, I don't know how you want to do it. If we want to take one organization at a time and just ask that organization to maybe explain their survey, or if you have specific questions for that organization as well.
If I may ask, I'm just curious, does it have to be a policy that's across the board, or can it be based on the type of the organization, like team sport versus individual sport, for example?
That is up to you to make that recommendation.
I have that power? Careful, Rex.
Well, village board has the power, the final decision.
I have all the power in the world to
We can make
recommend,
any
right?
recommendation we choose, village board will be the one doing it.
Okay.
I would always say that it's probably easier to do it across the board.
Well,
You know what I mean? Because then people aren't going to be pointing fingers, well, what about us? What about us?
right.
So my recommendation would be whatever policy we do would be across the board, but you can make any recommendation that you choose eventually. So I think tonight what we want to do, I'm talking about recommendations already. I think tonight is more of a fact-finding type of situation where now's our chance to ask those organizations that want to open it up about their responses, to give you a better idea of why they're wanting non-resident, non-open enrolled, as well as how would they handle some of the concerns that as a village we would have about them taking care of the Ashwaubenon youth, or making sure the priority is always going to be on our own Ashwaubenon youth in some form or fashion. I would say then after those questions are answered to your satisfaction this evening, those answers be stewed on for a month, and then official recommendation or additional questions be asked at the March meeting. And then at the March meeting is where I would probably ask for a recommendation to go to the March village board meeting. To see what direction they want to go.
When was this co-sponsored relationship requirements and policies initially drafted? I know it, right,
Well,
So it says revised
initially,
before,
Heidi,
by-
it was way before my time.
Yeah.
But over the course of the years, there's and a lot of it's in there. As we've added things in, I've tried to update and put down
With the
the
year.
year
okay.
that additional direction or guidelines were enacted and approved by the park board. But as a whole,
Hard
I'd
to say,
probably
eh?
say it was I'm guessing in the late 80s, early 90s is when it was probably initially crafted. And then I think at one point for most groups, they did have wide open registration. But then the numbers got very large, probably ebbs and tides on the cycle for registrations. And then back in the, I don't know, probably 2005, 2006, because it was a fairly hot topic when I came on board here with Ashwaubenon. A number of, probably even 2004, a number of parents approached the park board at the park board meeting as well as the village board requesting or stating concerns about the amount of coaching time and practice availability, space that the Ashwaubenon kids were having, and they wanted us to try and tighten it down, which is what both park and village board did. Eventually settling in at you either have to be an Ashwaubenon resident or open enrolled. And that's where we are until this point.
If we do want to let the groups talk, if someone wants to open the floor, we have to do that first.
Yeah, before we do that, so just to get kind of regroup with this, so when we first discussed this, I think it was the swim club was there a few months ago. Was there anybody else who was just the swim club?
They initially were the group that brought this kind of concern forward. Yeah.
And they just, if I remember right, they came up and gave kind of a presentation or reasons why they needed this. But there wasn't any back and forth. It was just them requesting it, and we really weren't able to ask questions at that time, right?
And Megan, who is our swim club coach, is here this evening to try and help answer any questions. I know Renee, Jaden Rice is the president, and I believe she had a prior engagement tonight. She may or may not be making it still this evening. It depends on how much discussion we have, but it looks like Megan is certainly here to try and answer any questions that we may have.
Okay. So, do we want to open the floor and then take? Oh, go ahead. No,
There was one more
Yeah,
initial meeting in there. We had that initial meeting and then
Was
we
it? Okay.
came back one more time and then
Okay.
this is the third. So just so you know.
Okay. So, yeah, we want to open the floor and let each group present themselves individually.
Need a
And
motion to open the floor?
We're able to ask questions at that point.
Hey, I did my motion for the meeting already.
Second.
I move, yeah, to open the floor.
Thank you, Heidi.
First and second, thank you.
And Dean,
We have a first and a second?
Yep.
Open the floor.
yes, we
Okay.
do.
Open the floor, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the floor is open. So,
Ask away.
do we want the groups to, because swim club's been up here, but not wrestling or football
It's baseball.
and baseball. So do we want each individual group to come up and present their
You're the boss.
ideas? Is that, I'm asking, is that how we want to do this? Okay.
Let's do it.
So let's do this. Maybe let's just make it easy. Let's just go in order of what we have here. So,
So swim.
Ryan doesn't need anything.
No, neither does AGSA. So just swim club.
Swim club.
Actually physically come up
All eyes on you. Go get
You're good. Probably right.
Okay, you don't have to, whatever works, Megan.
All right, so you have heard from us a couple of times. We're a unique entity of this whole co-sponsored program, I think, just because of how we're set up. So
Could you come up to the table here so I can hear you better?
Sorry.
We don't have mics.
So anyways, the Swim Club is kind of a unique entity as far as the co-sponsor programs go, because unlike baseball or softball or those kinds of sports, we have unlimited entries in all of our competitions. We have unlimited availability for participation. We have a very big, deep, experienced coaching staff with full time that has been allotted to us that I think we could be very flexible with and still offer a very high quality program for everyone, resident and non-resident. We work very closely with Melody on all of that, and she has also confirmed that she doesn't see us foresee this being a problem. We also know that we would keep it very measured as far as growth goes, being aware of numbers, being aware of full space and coaches, and keeping the quality program. That's what we're known as in the area of having one of the highest quality programs, and we don't want to lose that reputation. It's a great reputation to have, and so we're aware of it and committed to that as well. So I know you have our answers in there. I don't really want to repeat anything that you've already read and know, but if you have questions, please let me know.
I've got like 8 questions, so just kind of bear with me.
It's okay.
Some of this is just informational for myself. How long does your season run?
So we go of the 12 months about 10. We have off almost all of March and almost all of August.
Okay. And your registration period is,
Right before our season starts, the 2 weeks before. So,
and is there any other registration period during that year?
well, swimmers are able to join whenever throughout the season that they want to. There's different stipulations on costs and things, just of how our billing process goes, but they are able to join at any time.
Pool usage allocations?
So we have our allocated time. We come priority-wise kind of after the park and rec programs are already slotted in their times, and then Melody lets me know what's available in both pools. We have very different groups and different ages, so we take whenever we can in the worm pool with the smaller group, and then the older swimmers go later in the competition pool.
Age groupings?
They're more based on ability, so I would say ages in our lower group range from 5 to 10, 11, and then in our older groups go kind of 10 to 18. There's a little bit of crossover in abilities.
And then currently, what are the number of events and relays that you're able to have?
So for every competition, it varies as far as the events that are offered, but every single competition is always unlimited entries for relays and individual events.
What events that you've noticed seem to require the need for non-resident, non-open enrollment?
The thing that would really benefit all of our resident swimmers is just the bodies, and especially the boys and the younger age groups, and then the boys and girls in the older age groups, because we have quite a few swimmers who are kind of singletons in their age group and aren't able to ever participate in relays. And so my son, for example, is an 8 under boy, and he is qualified for state. We would have the ability to bring a whole relay with him to state if we had the swimmers to fill it. So we'd love to have that opportunity.
Okay, you currently have a medley relay at all?
We don't have enough for either at those age groups.
Okay, because of the different strokes and so forth?
Just because of numbers.
And you have 76 currently for numbers?
And to clarify that, if he makes an individual cut, that means 3 other kids can go with him to state to do that relay.
Which is a really cool experience. They don't have to qualify, just one swimmer does. So we would be able to bring a group down for that experience as well, which really that experience has built our quality of swimmers throughout the years, just having been in a meet like that to see what they can kind of shoot for themselves.
You stated in your questionnaire that you have between 10 and 15 meets in a year's time. And then these are obviously all based upon times that the kids have.
Well, yes and no. Of the 2 seasons, each one has their final competition meet, which was normally the state meet or the national meet that they qualify for. Those are the only 2 qualifying meets throughout the season that everyone doesn't qualify for. All of the other meets, I would say around that 12 to 13, anyone can go to at any point.
And this is competing against other swim clubs?
Megan, what was you've been involved with swim club for quite a few years. What was your maximum enrollment in previous years?
Yeah,
How high have you ever gotten?
I would say around that 2010 to 2014 time, we were up over 100, 110 to 115-ish was our highest in our old little pool, which was a very different situation. And we still kind of creatively made it work. But now we have twice the pool space and bigger lanes and just a better situation for this.
What would be the goal number? Like what is like ideal for the group?
It's a great question. And I'd say it's kind of hard to answer because we only want to go as big as we can do well. So I think we would start small. I'd love to say we get back to maybe that 100 number range. And then if we think it's doable, maybe 110, next year 120, but very slow growth is really our plan. I don't foresee a big exodus from other teams coming our way. As far as USA swimming rules go, there's no recruiting or advertising or things like that. So while a lot of people think a lot of our program, I think it's a good time to do that and a fair time to do it. The biggest interest we've had is from the West of Peer group, who doesn't have a team.
That was going to be my question.
Mhm.
That's the pocket, right? That
Mm-hmm.
that you envision having the ability to come over and swim. I do know a person there in Green Bay. They're school choicing this next year, and will be joining the swim team and know of the swim program. So it's not, you're not just up here bragging about it. It's public that we have a good program. And it's something that they desire to do in their school choicing it, not just for that, for their family, but that they will be. But the Pier area, the Spire Web Park, if you will, or Sand Acres, is that it's the population where they can't swim at all, really, right? Unless they go find a club team. Is that the case?
And that's where it splits for us. So we have our neighbors who, because we're in the Ashwaubenon side of that, who can't swim, but we're on the opposite side of the road, so we can. So that's the perfect example.
So this is kind of an odd scenario as I'm just thinking through this, if I may jump in here for a second. So if you're getting a fair amount of kids interested in the West Dakota School District, are you still wanting to open it up to literally anyone in Brown County, or do you think you could fill it by just also inviting any students who attend or are open enrolled also in the West Dakota School?
I mean, I think we're pretty flexible to any sort of opportunities that are offered, and we could start with whatever suggestions you may have. We value your opinion for sure. I think that definitely could be an option. I don't know if that is, I don't know, legal, doable.
I was saying, is that a thing that can be done? Just be like, hey, we like you. You can come and swim in our pool.
I don't have any preferences or things like that brought against us.
Well, you can put any parameters on it that you want. I mean, you certainly have to be fair and equitable.
What about De Pere? De Pere, like Redbirds don't have.
And the only reason I suggested the West of Pier is because Ashwaubenon is also served by the West of Pier School.
They combine.
West of Pier and East of Pier and USA North.
We use ours.
But the East of Pier school kids don't pay that school. If you live, they don't get we don't get taxes from them. There are a number of West of Pier schools or students that pay taxes to Ashwaubenon.
Right. No, I know that.
And that's why I'm just trying to think, okay, what options do we have here that we may not need to be
Does West of Pier have its own like park and rec program, or that's De Pere? Because that's just West of Pier School District.
West of Pier as a whole has its own park.
You got two school districts in the same city. It's
Right.
only one in the state of Wisconsin.
The park and rec covers both east and west.
Interesting.
I think a good thing for us to look at as far as we look at data and just potential swimmers is our swimming lesson program. And that is right now open enrolled, and Melody has a great turnout, mostly residents and of course some non-residents. And when I've spoken to her, she's really projected that I think it would be quite similar percentage-wise. I don't think we're going to get, again, a huge group running towards us, but I think it could be pretty consistent with what we have, which the last time I spoke with her, it was like 10% non-residents.
I don't know, Megan, you're a good coach and we got a great pool. where I think a lot of people would be willing to jump over. I mean, I'm not saying it wouldn't happen in all the sports, but if it happens, I think it would happen on the swim club.
Well, thanks, everyone.
Being honest,
What are you guys feel like you're trying to do?
The biggest thing is just the opportunity for our current resident swimmers to have the same opportunity as all these other teams in the area with numbers, which turn into relays, which turn into a more competitive team. That's ultimately our goal, is to give them a competitive opportunity like other teams in the area offer.
One of the things I like about swimming, because my kid recently signed up, is you're competing against yourself. You're not competing against the person in the lane next to you. You're looking at your last best time and trying to beat that and trying to improve that time. So it's very different from other sports in that you're not vying for a spot on a team. You're not trying to compete against your friend or your neighbor or anything like that. You are legitimately just trying to get stronger and get faster. And it creates a well-rounded athlete. Like mine picked up swimming so that she can play softball better, but it's making her a better, well-rounded athlete because she's looking at what she can do to improve herself. And then when she gets into the softball season, then she can see how she contributes to a team individually. So it is not like team sport versus individual sport. Like, I think it is a very different set of like confidence and psyche around that than our more traditional. So using swim and maybe, I don't know a lot about wrestling, so I don't want to speak out of turn here, but even that, like using the team sports as a guide for what it might have been like to vie for a spot on that team, swimming is not like that. And I can say that like firsthand that swimming is not like that because my kid's got a spot on that team and I think she could barely, like she's a good swimmer, but in the strokes, like even teaching them, like you think swimming, you think you're gonna Michael Phelps it across the lake during the summertime, like to actually teach the coordination and the fly and the breast and like that. There's a lot more that goes into it for the individual swimmer versus a team sport, and I think that that's kind of important to think about as well, just the differences.
What are you competing against other clubs around the area for swimmers? Or like, are we losing any swimmers to other?
Every once in a while,
clubs?
and to be honest, it's in those age groups where we just can't offer the relay opportunities because the relays are really the coveted fun thing. That's the thing everybody loves. And I wouldn't say it's, again, a large number, but there have been a couple in the not so far past year that have gone to different teams to have other people to train with and race with.
What relay events could you potentially have?
We could have a relay in every single age group and every single event.
So you could have a freestyle relay. You could have a medley which requires 4 participants with the 4 different strokes.
Mm-hmm. And then you can have unlimited A, B, C, D, E, F, G relays as far as you can fill. That's unlimited in every competition.
And then they compete against the other clubs in these 10 to 15 that you were talking about originally. And then let's say you have a freestyle 25-yard relay or 100-yard relay. Each person swims 25.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And all of these people are considered to be resident or open enrollment, and the 4 that you have for that relay team. Okay. And let's say you've got a medley team, 100-yard. You've got somebody for the backstroke. You've got somebody for the butterfly. You've got somebody for the breaststroke. You don't have somebody for the breaststroke. And you've got somebody for the freestyle. And you need somebody to fill that spot for the breaststroke. Okay. So you've got somebody out there that could, but they're not a resident, so you would like a non-enrollment possibility to fill that spot, okay, for that breaststroke. But in the practices at the same time, you want to actually have that medley relay so that you can compete against other clubs, which you haven't been able to up to this point. But you find out with the practices over a period of time that person that you want for the breaststroke is also very good in freestyle. Okay. As a matter of fact, the freestyle that they set was faster than 3 of the people that you have in the freestyle relay. And in your competitions, in those 10 and 15 other clubs, you find that you're in second place against all the competitors in those clubs and looking pretty good for competition after that. Okay? What do? you've got a guy here that you could put in there,
Mhm.
and it could make you a first place freestyle relay team.
Well,
But
and,
that's at the expense of bumping somebody out that's a resident.
and that very well could happen because it's hard to know how fast any of the
See,
non-residents
those
could
are
be.
the conflicts when you add another tier of just for residents as compared to non-residents. I coached for many, many years, okay? And I can see how as a coach, you can get into that between, I want to focus on what's best for the kids, but I'm also competing. And when you're competing, sometimes that drives different decision making.
Mhm. Well, and to be honest, there is an answer in our club mission statement, bylaws, everything. This is all pretty much laid out, that the policy is the fastest four do swim. So if it was a resident, non-resident situation, it's not personal. It's the computer actually that picks it. It does all the math. The fastest four would swim and could swim. Could they all be non-residents? Potentially, but we'd have to have a lot of ifs here. If the kids are fast enough, if we have enough of them, if all four would be non-residents, that's not something we could project at this point.
I know, but if they were all residents, you wouldn't have that issue of having to deal with non-residents.
But right now, our residents can't swim at all because there's not four of them.
It's a catch-22,
It is.
because Dean, the question, the scenario you just brought up is exactly one of the scenarios that parents brought forward back in 2005.
And that's why I bring it up. Like I said, I coached for a lot of years in track, so I know about times and competition, state sections, regions, all of that.
So as far as open enrollment goes, they pay an extra fee to open enroll, is that correct?
Mhm.
To the school district?
No,
To the
for
parking
the
lot.
co-sponsor organizations, they pay an extra $15 fee, which goes directly, stays with the club.
Okay.
What we're talking about currently, I thought you meant like. So
No,
awesome.
just like in general though too, like, so because their parents choose to bring them to a different school, they get the privilege to swim in our pool and the privilege to,
The decision
picked for that?
was made, off the top of my head, I think 2007, 2008, when open enrollment was starting to grow in the Ashwaubenon School District. You're having a lot of kids that were in school together, in class together, that were becoming best friends
Right.
as they moved up. And so the village board and park board felt at the time that those should be together, that the open enrolled kids had the same privilege to join co-sponsored as the Ashwaubenon residents because of that closeness they had within our school system.
but their families aren't paying taxes to Ashwaubenon.
That's what the extra $15 is for.
Okay, and $15 covers that privilege?
That rate was set by.
But I mean, I'm not trying to like nickel and
Covers what? I don't
dime.
know what you're asking if it covers.
Well, because
Like,
like
if they're-
what we're saying is that if
If they
they,
join 10 different activities, then they're paying $15
Right.
for another 10 activities.
so I'm just saying is if their parents choose to bring them to our school because they pay an extra $15, they get more of the privilege. Or not even, because if they were non-residents, they would still pay the $15. So just because their parents bring them to school, they get to
They're
our
they're
school.
eligible for our co-sponsor.
Correct. So what makes them any more special than the kid whose parents doesn't want to bring them to our schools?
I think from a school standpoint, I think when they come in for open enrollment, it also brings more state aid into the school district. I
It
think
does.
that's some of the reason for it.
I think it's right as a teacher.
Yeah, the state aid's a lot more than $15. I mean,
Yeah.
that's.
Hey, but that goes to the
drop in
school
bucket.
district, right?
I'm just saying,
Not
probably
to
somewhere
the
around $10,000.
village? Because we're talking about tax payment, we're talking about taxpayers. That like people who pay taxes here don't want people who don't pay taxes here to use our facilities, is what I'm reading. What I kind of take from it, or they don't want to take their kid's place or anything like that. So I guess the way I look at it is just because their parents don't want to bring them to our school doesn't mean that they shouldn't be allowed to bring them to our swim club, to our events, to
I'm
our.
just throwing a scenario
Right.
out there in terms of the parent side of it.
Right. Well, and I'm a parent, and I can tell you that if my kid isn't the fastest swimmer, she doesn't deserve that spot. Like that to me, like I don't care how many taxes I pay. My kid's not the fastest swimmer, she's not the fastest swimmer.
I had 200 IDs in my.
It's been a while since I've had children in swim, but could you just clarify for me, other than a qualifying meet, so like a state meet or something, you can have multiple relays though, right? So even if you have this fast built relay team, if you have 4 more, you can put another relay in that same, so you could, if you had the kids, put 4 relays in for that same, right? Just clarify.
Could they just, they won't go too far because they're not the fastest relay.
Well, it's all about opportunity. That's all it is. for us.
Like I said, everyone, it's a catch-22. So I don't know. And again, we can go on and on the whole night discussing this. I'm just going to say from a past point of view, the situation that you're talking about, yeah, they could go on another relay, but they're being bumped off, and that Ashwaubenon resident is being bumped off of the fastest or the best relay team in favor of a non-resident. Now, that's fine if they are a non-co-sponsored organization. Now I'm talking as a park and rec director, trying to keep the best interests of the village in mind, type of thing. So, and that's fine, but that is what brought in a lot of people, which potentially could happen again to park and village board, unless we are very careful on how we word this and how we proceed forward on this. I'm not saying that we can't, but this is what you need to be careful of, this exact thing, which is why I don't know if we're gonna discuss it tonight. It might, again, probably something we need to stew on for a while.
So
when it's all said and
on
done.
the flip side of that, fast forward, like I get 20 years ago, fast forward now 20 years to where we are right now, and our programs do have a reputation of being more of participation trophy programming. And I recently heard, do you guys even want to win at all? Like, what are you doing over there? So when you look at it, like, you fast forward and you look at what we are intending the policy to do, and then what it has actually done, like, you can say that right now, 20 years ago, it worked. 20 years ago, there were the students, there were the caliber of open enrollments that made Ashwaubenon athletics. They put a name on the map. Now, yes, there are programs that put Ashwaubenon athletics on the map, but it's not across the board the way it was 20 years ago. So I think, from my opinion, being an outsider looking in, I didn't live here 20 years ago, but 20 years ago I knew of Ashwaubenon because of their athletic program and everything that they had going on. Now, I can't say that reputation is consistent from what it was 20 years ago.
Because it doesn't have the competitiveness?
Because it doesn't have the quality. We're competitive. I almost say we go out there and put our best foot forward. However, the pool of talent is much smaller. We do not have the volume of children. We do not have the volume of kids in Ashwaubenon that we had 20 years ago.
So you may not be as competitive as you possibly could.
Well, because
You don't have the volume.
the volume and the talent isn't there, and anybody can play. I will say this, like, I help coach 10U softball, and our tournament team, you as a 10U softball player, you can walk on a tournament team, and we have a kid this year who has never played softball before a day in her life. She's a safety hazard because we've got pitchers pitching 40 miles an hour at a kid who's never caught a ball a day in her life, swinging at balls that are coming at her at 40 miles an hour, and they're fast, but they're not always accurate. So when we say everybody gets a chance to play, everybody gets to do this, it changes the way that things are. So when you say, like, you're competing, like, I know I'm getting a little bit off topic here, but bear with me. When you are wanting the best, most talented kiddos to have the opportunities, to what extent, to what degree? I'm not saying that spot is getting taken. I'm just saying that our programs right now are not the same as they were 20 years ago. And how do we find a spot of way to meet in the middle on this to embrace the community that we do have, the talent that we do have available to us, not the ones whose parents just pay taxes.
Okay, here's where, if I can, I'm gonna butt in here just to keep everything rolling along and respect the other group's time too, is this is why we're having this discussion, but we're not gonna make a decision tonight. I think what we wanna do is have this discussion with the individual groups like we are here, which there's some great questions and answers, and gather that information, and then for us to then digest that and have that that discussion here internally, to move on to the next step, which would be next time to recommend something to the board. But for us to kind of,
Keep moving, yep.
I just want to clarify two little things before we get too hung up on this whole relay situation, because that's just a relay. A typical swim meet, a kid can swim 8 events, 2 of those are relay. So it's not either you're in or you're out. That relay doesn't really affect. It's just part of the opportunity. The other thing is, one thing that is honestly been a recent issue is swimmers can leave to go to other places. They cannot come. And so we have seen just this last year or two, individuals leave that are very fast, that are realizing that we aren't going to be able to offer them what they need with the situation, and they can only leave. Unfortunately, we can't take anybody else on. So that's kind of our reality right now.
can I ask you have you done anything to promote the program to try to, I know nobody likes to use the word recruit because you're not really recruiting outside.
Yep.
But to promote it to bring the numbers up, what have you done?
Definitely. Every season, we go into every school, we set up a table, we pass out flyers, we hit every possible student during the orientation nights. That's been very beneficial for us to get some new kids every year. We also are involved in a lot of things like the parade for homecoming. We get our events out there as much as possible. We've hosted huge state meets, regional meets, things like that people have heard of and get up, asking about, oh, what's that all about? We also have done
New Swimmer Week.
Yeah, New Summer Week. We do a free trial week at the beginning of every season where swimmers get to try out, see if it's a good fit for them, and that's free for anyone to try. And we also, in every single swimming lesson report card, when they're at the appropriate level, put in your next step is, if you're a resident, to join the swim club. So we've looked at our current interested people who have never even maybe set foot in the pool before, and then all of our kind of K-12 students as well.
So for the free swimmer nights or some of these intro things, have you worked with Melody to get them on our Facebook pages and get them out to the 5,000 plus people that signed up for us? Because I know you're in the schools and on the tables and like that. That's exactly what you need to do.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just kind of, I'm assuming you're working with Melody. I mean, I don't ask her every zillion questions.
Yes, it's been out there in multiple ways. It's been emailed in every weekly Wednesday, electronic paper. It's been out there multiple times to every student in the district for an opportunity.
And it is advantageous, obviously, to be a feeder program to the high school.
Exactly, yes.
Which we shouldn't overlook that either.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions?
Can I just add to what you said about the high school program? I am with wrestling, but also I have kids that are swimmers too. Our boys team compared to our girls team in high school is about 1/3 of the girls team. We're at this is our largest boys team. We're graduating like 8 or 9 seniors this year. They might have 6 kids that year for our high school swim.
9 of which are going to state on Friday.
Exactly. So, without those younger kids coming in for boys swimming, you probably may not have a boys high school swim team.
I actually brought the same similar scenario up for baseball and got challenged a bit because we lost our 14U teams going, I don't want to say rogue, our 15U team went on their own this year to play, so we don't have a Legion baseball team. And the challenge back was, well, they'll come back to play high school baseball. They can, but I have to compete with CBT, Velocity, ISA. There's another outfit coming up. I have a lot of clubs around ripping talent from us because similar things where I have to have by the rules 8 kids to play baseball on. And if I have 8 kids on the field, we're getting crushed. And, 12 is what I need to make it through an entire weekend of baseball, minimum. And everybody's laboring. And we lost an 11U team this year. Our 15U team went to do their own thing. So we're caught. Legion has to make decisions. It's tough. And part of it is the population shift here. Girls probably are going to be safe for the next couple of years, but then even that starts to drop fast. And we have to get really creative really fast. Baseball never had a problem with enrollment until recently. We're in trouble. we're finding new ways to do things, which would be great for baseball, but families now, instead of having a 5-minute drive down to Ashwaubomay to play baseball on Tuesday, they're gonna have to drive to Little Chute this year, like for the youth. Not, it's gonna shake some people up. They're not gonna like it. I'll probably lose some more. So we might be down to 2 teams next year. It's kind of scary.
So so many things to talk about.
Oh yeah.
Why did soccer double their numbers in the last 2 to 3 years?
Well, Melody spoke about this at the last meeting. She said it's $45 for the season. There's no volunteering, there's no fundraising, and it's a 3-month season. Kind of comparing apples to oranges. Parents are able to throw, any kid who's interested in trying it with not too much of a commitment versus these other teams that are a little bit more of a year-round commitment.
And equipment costs for soccer are a little bit less.
So the students we have are interested in less commitment and lower costs.
Parents.
Yeah.
Students would play every day, everywhere, everything. Parents are like, wait a minute, I gotta spend 2 hours in that concession stand? I'm out. I'll go sit on the sideline,
Here, take my money, so then you have
drink
nobody.
vodka coolers out of my Stanley and watch my kid run around and kick a soccer ball. That's where we're
Or you give them the out to pay the $200, they'll pay you the $200 and nobody's in your concession stand.
I have a family.
You realize why I'm asking that?
I have a family that pays.
I'm asking that to see if there's anything that we can do as organizations to try and align what parents' wants and needs are without changing the thread of the fabric of each sport, basically.
She also did mention that the majority of our kids are 8 years old and under for soccer. We just started at 8 years old, and so it's a whole different demographic, to be honest. So I'm not surprised those numbers are up, looking at those couple variables we just talked about, but it's a very different thing when you're talking about 8 years old and up for sports.
Well, and we've looked at, families not coming into Ashwaubenon because we're landlocked. And that, I think, goes kind of back to your thought, Rex, as far as, okay, here, maybe that's something to think about because that's the direction we're going in. We're going to be continuing to go in as we continue to do subdivisions out that way.
Yeah, another one coming up, and probably another 1 or 2 after. 2 of them are actually coming online, and probably 2 more after that. It's the last buildable land in Ashwaubenon, unless you want to go up, which is what's happening over here.
And if you're going up, you're probably not talking young students.
Not school age.
School age, yeah.
There's some young ones living in there here now, but I think those kids are being born and then parents are keeping them for a year or 2 before they move on to different types of movement.
Well, and we've seen the effect of Titletown and stuff like that too. I mean, those areas used to be areas where young families could get into. And now the prices there are going exorbitant too.
Chris, I'm going to say if there's no more questions for swim club.
I was gonna say, just wrestling now.
Yeah, we're gonna apply that. Is everything, any other questions for swim club? All right, wrestling.
First off, thanks for the opportunity. In having my name is Brian Wallace. I'm the president of the Ashwaubenon Wrestling Club.
I'm David Pink, vice president.
And when Megan first came to the Park and Rec board before, her and I have had plenty of conversations about the co-sponsorship and that, just because we have children that swim on the same team. So I did support her in her decision there and asked if she needed anything. And at that time, we said, just swimming to go forward. So you guys do have our questionnaire that was filled out. We are we're probably the smallest organization. We have 44 kids registered for wrestling right now. We have a short season. We go in November, usually late November until early mid-March, depending on how late the kids decide to wrestle, if they like to go to the tournament season or whatever. But the youth state tournament is always the last weekend of March. So that's kind of the season there. We run a youth, a free youth night, not night, but a 3-week trial period kind of in October, just to try to get the youth kids in all the various elementary schools try it out, see if you like it, and then we can sign up after that. That's how we do our recruiting. We do that through weekly Wednesday flyers, that kind of information there. We just had our tournament yesterday, our annual tournament. We are in year 2 coming back off of COVID. So, it was good to see. Last year we had 150, 160 kids sign up for our tournament. Unfortunately, just because of gym space, we could get it would happen to fall on the last Packer game of the season last year, so our numbers were very low. Yesterday, we had over 350 registrants for our tournament, so it was actually a really nice thing, and we usually set that cap at 400 participants, so that was great. As volunteer-wise go, we had, I think, 24 to 30 volunteer slots out of our 44 wrestlers who did not fill them, just so you guys are aware. So parent-wise, they don't want to participate, they don't want to help. So it's something we run into as well. Dave, do you have any other thing to add?
No, big things, yeah, this season, just things with Facebook, we have our club on there, so to help spread the word of different things we have going on. And just word of mouth is the big thing for spreading ours as well.
On that end, did you say you get into the Wednesday weekly?
Yep, we're in the weekly Wednesday, yep.
Have you guys contacted Rex at all about social media or anything, helping out that way?
Up until our meeting last in December, didn't know that we had social medias to talk to amongst each other. So I would hope that if they see us posting that kind of stuff, if they're not out there following us, they see us post on our tournament or registration, please definitely share that out there. And we'll try to work with them too as well.
If you've got something, don't count on one of us actually seeing it.
Okay.
I would say if you got something, shoot me an email, and we're always happy, no matter what co-sponsor organization it is, to put it on our webpage.
Yep. And this is the former presidents that didn't really pass down a whole lot of information to us. So we'll take all the information that we can get from you guys so we can make sure that the program is successful moving forward too.
What avenues would you guys have to? I'm just trying to like swim is around. They're around pools and things like that. Where obviously that's recorded.
Yep.
I was involved a lot with hockey in the past. Well, you're at the ice rinks. You're able to kind of grab kids in it, or even open skating. Things like that. Where do you guys go to try to find those kids that, hey, you might be interested?
A lot of it's word of mouth. A lot of the people that are involved in wrestling are usually involved in football too as well. So they try to pull in kids from the lines. We get some middle schoolers that way. A lot of it's just more word. A lot of it's just more word of mouth, though. Wrestling's not an over popular sport. I will say it seems like every time the basketball team is successful at the high school, our numbers are usually a little bit lower. And then as kids progress through basketball, when they learn that they're not playing or they're not as good, we usually get those kids start falling into wrestling because they're trying to look for something else to do. Or they might go into swim for the winter. They're trying to find a different sport. So our registration does not close during our season. We are open the whole time. They can register at any time. We'll take you. It doesn't matter. Skill level, it means nothing. Show up, get our pair of shoes, and let's go.
Do you have girls in the program?
We do have girls in the program right now. Actually, our head coach has a daughter in the program. We have, I think, 5, 6 girls right now currently. Yep. And girls wrestling is I believe, the #1 growing sport in the United States right now. The NCAA just did all 3 divisions. They're going to have women's wrestling next year as a sponsored sport. So it's huge.
I think Green Bay, I've seen a lot from Green Bay elementary schools and stuff like that, that they're doing more girls wrestling.
I know
Bayport has a big girl population.
Bayport has a team. Pulaski has a team. Green Bay United has several girls.
Wrightstown.
Wrightstown may or may not.
I saw some buddies who wrestled for Wrightstown.
In the older divisions, but
Yeah.
And we do have some middle school girls too as well. So I can foresee our high school team having a girls team in the future.
Specific questions for wrestling from any of the park board members?
As for wrestling, this is 100% individual when it gets to tournaments and that. So it would be just a matter of your personal coaching allotment on who you would, obviously as you get towards big meets and that, there may be different things, but opportunity wise, there's really no discretion there, right? Because it's all on the person.
There isn't, yeah. I mean, when I coached for several years in the program too as well, and several years with Green Bay West Southwest group too as well. Tournaments are open. You don't even have to have a coach to participate in the tournament. It doesn't matter. You can have a parent coach, a friend, a relative. It doesn't really matter. You can go anywhere in the state of Wisconsin that you would like. You can go outside. You can go to UP. You can go to Michigan. It really doesn't matter. I took my son down to Missouri for a tournament because he wanted to go. All right, cool. Let's go. Possibilities are really endless. As far as space, we do have a wrestling room at the high school. That's where we utilize all of our practices. Sometimes they end up having to go to Parkview just for scheduling wise with the high school team if they're using it for an evening. We have no issues currently. We can accept a lot more kids. We run 2 different practices, kind of a K through 2 and then a 3 through 5. Currently, we're having issues with those 5th graders transitioning into the Parkview program in the middle school. But those numbers, it just kind of seems to be the drop off is that once they hit 5th grade, they're kind of done. They don't want to do it anymore. Or there's different opportunities for them. I don't know if it's the same with baseball or swim or any of the other sports, but there's just a lot more opportunities for kids the older they get.
Oh, that's the same question as that. Swim, are you losing any kids or possibly losing kids to other clubs?
No, I don't think we're losing kids to any other clubs. Actually, I know there's some kids, usually older ones, they'll actually go to like a private club, like an ISA for baseball. They'll go to like an Aspen Wrestling Academy that's in Ashwaubenon there. We encourage that, go there, get practice time, and then also come to our club too as well. And they actually encourage you to participate in your local club. They're not trying to pull the kids and steal them and do that. They actually want you to participate in both.
All right. Anybody else have any specific questions?
How many meets does how many opportunities for meets then
They're
wrestling?
during the wrestling season, pretty much starting December, first weekend of December through the beginning of March. Every Saturday, Sunday, there's a meet somewhere. You can find one.
Do you need to, would you as a coach need to sign everybody up type of thing?
Nope. It's all done online. They can participate. What we do is we've usually given the kids a list of tournaments where a coach will be at, and that's usually the popular ones where they sign up. So also you encourage them, if you've got a relative, go, you find one, you can sign up for it, and that's it. I know we would love to be able to pull in some other kids. I mean, I don't know if there's any kids on the west side that kind of border Ashwaubenon there that might go to Green Bay United or whatever. I know their club is growing. They used to be very small. Now they're getting a lot bigger too as well. Maybe those kids just are struggling for participation there, or they can't find the right practice partner. That's another thing with wrestling too. The more kids you have, easier it is to have a practice partner. If I have a kid that is a kindergartner that's 75 pounds, I can't have him practice with a kid that's 40 pounds. And it just doesn't work that way. Whereas in baseball or swim, they can participate all together. The more kids and athletes that you have participating, the better it's going to be, because your just likelihood of having practice partners near the same age group or weight, and then you can narrow it down to the ability level later as well.
So I got a question, Brian.
Sure.
I probably should have asked the swim club, which I might go back to Megan on this too. But for wrestling, you obviously with your numbers and just where you need to practice, you're the one that has the least amount of, I guess, strain on the village. You don't use Village of Ashwaubenon facilities to practice. You use school district facilities.
Correct.
And your financial the village's financial contribution is a whopping $427.
I guess.
And you also are covered by the village's insurance.
Exactly.
So I think one of the things in March that the village board will wind up needing to talk about too, because that's what their thing is let's just say the park board let's do a couple supposedly things. The park board says, yeah, go ahead, open it up. And it goes to the village board, and then the village board needs to make a decision on whether or not to financially support an organization if they're going to go, basically it's open to anyone. Okay, so if the park board made a decision next month to do that, to open it up, and then it went to village board said, that's fine with us, but we're not going to financially support you anymore or do the in-kind services. Would you still want to be a co-sponsored organization then? Or would you just say, you know what, we'll go off on our own type of a thing?
That'd be a tough decision and something that we'd have to talk about with our board. As a big thing that is helpful is the insurance. Now the insurance, we would have to go to a USA Wrestling club. And with being USA Wrestling, then the club has a fee to pay, and that each athlete would also have to purchase a USA Wrestling card. Right now we charge $65. The USA Wrestling card is $65. Or I believe that was the last time that I bought one. And that's for the insurance reasons for that athlete. We require our coaches to carry the USA certification, or at least our head coach anyways, and then we're trying to get the other ones. And that's just mainly for background checks, also for insurance purposes for them too as well, if they get hurt during practices, anything like that too as well. But also a lot of the higher level tournaments require a coach to have that certification and have that card. And also if a wrestler to participate in the youth regional or youth state, they have to have that card too as well. And usually I think it starts around like fourth grade or so. Around that age
What the
group.
village does is just the general liability insurance for each organization.
Sure, and that would be something that we would have to do. And I know we don't receive a lot of funds from the village. So and that was a question that we had because it wasn't even relayed to us that we even had funds to use at one point. So how is that funds determined per sport, so to speak? How do you come up with the 421? I guess I don't know.
That was long before me. I don't know.
Okay, I didn't know if it was more based off of participants or numbers, because everybody else gets a different number, so that's why I didn't know. So
yeah,
I mean,
those are dollar amounts when I first came on. In fact, over the years we've tried to decrease some of the amounts. I think we took 1,000 off of baseball and softball back in the day, and then we took another 1,000 off of soccer probably just a couple of years ago, just to try and decrease the village support, just with financial reasons.
You might gotta go look into the community center a little bit.
Any other questions for wrestling?
Yeah, do you, and maybe this goes to swimming too, when parents don't, like for fundraisers or like soda stand, popcorn stand, whatever, parents refuse to do that, you said?
it's harder. So
do you charge them? Are they able to pay a fee if they don't want to do it? $50 fee or something.
We had it on our registration. We actually had it. If you did not sign up to volunteer, it was $400 fee.
Oh.
We upped it because of the $150 for baseball or two. I mean, they're more willing to pay that. So it's like, no, let's just make it huge. We have never had to charge anybody for that. So those that didn't sign up, we can go and talk to them and find out what actually happened, that kind of stuff, to see if we actually need to impose that fee on them. But our tournament is our fundraising. We do not require anybody we don't do any fundraising during the year. We don't do anything else like that. This last year, we actually farmed out our concessions and we had a apparel vendor there to supplement us with that income. And so we reduced the number of volunteers by having a different vendor there for all the food and concessions. So it actually worked out really well. Great question, though. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions for wrestling?
The apparel vendor went very, very well. It was very successful.
All right, thanks, gentlemen.
Thank you.
I'm going to backtrack and ask that same question, Megan. So scenario-wise, park board says we're going to allow it. we're going to recommend allowing non-residents, non-open enrolled into the swim club. Goes to the village board, and the village board says, fine with us, but we're not going to support financially, or we're going to pull back on the amount. Still want to go open it up, or or just want to be co-sponsored then?
Well, that's a great question. Like everybody else, it's kind of based on the budget and what that would look like. Depending on the pool time is our biggest, the rental fee would be our biggest expense. If it's something we could justify being worth it and would not put our team under, I would say absolutely, if we can make it work. If it makes rates, extremely expensive or just doesn't seem like a viable decision at that point, we'd have to reevaluate. But with the hopes of, if you do pass this on, that we could probably come up with something that works for everyone, that we could potentially have some skin in the game if it worked out that way, but that it would be something that's, again, just viable for our swimmers as well. Because if we get 0 open enroll kids and our rates go up, of course, that's going to be disappointing.
Hey, sorry to interrupt. Lily, you ready to go?
All right, she has to get to practice.
Ready?
All right, thanks.
Thank you. And thank you for your time and thinking about this. I really appreciate it.
Did you want to know also about our volunteer requirement?
Yes.
We do have a requirement to volunteer certain number of shifts per week that we offer, and then donate to the concession stands for it. Do some fundraising as well. That we have a buyout that's pretty high as well, and people are choosing to take that buyout.
Okay.
It's just where they're at. But we also offer. We have 2 meets per year that we host, and some of them are pretty big, and we require a lot of volunteer hours to run them.
Yeah. 3 meets.
Yeah. Okay.
2 winter, 1 spring.
Thanks, Bree. She kind of acknowledged yes before when I asked the yeah. But thanks. All right. AYB.
We are in a interesting position on this, knowing that, so as noted, we received more in-kind services and financial services from the village. Now, it's not the financial part that would really kill us, it's more of the in-kind. If I had to pay for every time they came to drag our fields and mow our lawn and chalk our lines, and I had to pay for the concession stand to be used, I don't know, we could turn the lights on. All of that's factored in. We do pay a significant amount of overages at the end of the year. I think it was a few thousand extra on top, so chalk, diamond dry, extra this or that. So we have 3 tournaments as well. A lot of fundraising for that, but we've raised a lot of money, but I'm in the process of ordering $24,000 of batting cage nets. So as fast as we can make it, it is not cheap to run a baseball program. Baseballs, equipment needs to be changed because it gets used, battered up, kids grow out of it, so on and so forth. Then the problem is, on top of that, we have our shrinking participants, which, as I noted earlier, we lost the 11U program tournament team. So a bunch of them went. I had 2 go to ISA, 3 go to Black Sheep, and 1 go to Green Bay Rays. We didn't have enough for a team, so the rest bowed out. Brings us down to 3 teams at that age group for regular league play. So we seeked out communities, and we're able to get in with Little Shoot and Freedom. So that's where we'll be playing our baseball, traveling around with that age group, which for baseball wise is going to be great because it'll be different competition, not the same things. Coaches will look at it differently, not like just league play. Hopefully the kids look at it as more competitive so that they actually play baseball and not just screw around. That's all great, but for the open enrollment side of it, we're not looking to have 200 kids come in to supplement everything. I don't know that we get more than 20. I wouldn't cap it. And really what we're looking for is not to supplement like our tournament teams, which I think part of the issue would be, oh, little Johnny, he's your best pitcher and your shortstop, and he's going to bat fourth. Well, that's for us. We're only going to limit that to league night play. So you want to come and open, or you want to come in here as a non-resident, it's just going to be league for league baseball. We're not going to get very many people that do that, but they might want to play with their friends. I have a couple of requests throughout the years of, hey, they just want to play for the summer. Sorry, you can't because you live in Green Bay. Well, you can't because you're in Green Bay. So that's where our separation would be, is we would only allow it for league play as opposed to the tournament side, where I think the tournament side of the baseball is where you could get a lot more animosity, where the person comes here to play for Ashwaubenon, maybe their parent wants to coach, now that kid will be, you get the coach's favor anyway. We just had to make it a very challenging decision for a tournament this summer. In fact, comments were that kid's only going because his dad's coach type stuff. But we had 19 kids sign up and we can only take 14. So there has to be other arrangements because we can't have everybody go to Iowa. But they all have opportunities to play. They'll all get their allotted numbers. Tournaments. What else is there? As noted, like it's more the finances side for us. We would be interested in allowing the open enrolled just to help support our program numbers to keep baseball moving forward. But without the financial side of it and the in-kind side of it, more so the in-kind side of it, we couldn't function as a program. It would be very difficult. And with the amount of parents that are willing to pay $4,000 to $6,000 to leave to go play, to travel around the Midwest here to play baseball with an ISA program is astounding.
Isn't it though?
It just freedom allows their kids to play
I've
ISA.
seen their coaches are no better. We've got good coaches. A lot of them, not everyone, but you know what I mean. But
Careful, I'm a coach, Rex.
Freedom allows
that's what
their
I'm saying. We've got good coaches, but people are still, because it's a private club, they're willing to pay $4,000 to $6,000 for a season. You shake your head sometimes.
Freedom has two teams, and I'm really focusing on the age group that's really hurt the most, and that's our 11 and 12-year-olds. Freedom has two teams, and I would say at least a quarter or more of them play at ISA as well. They allow it. We're going to play one night a week because their tournament teams practice on Tuesday nights. Something that our families all want when I tell them, but not everybody is a tournament team kid. Not everybody plays on tournament team. So we're trying to play baseball 2 nights a week. Coaches, we need more practice. You're right. But we're first a league for the kids to play baseball. Tournament team is secondary. You can do that on Sunday nights. You can do that on Friday nights. You can do that on Monday and Wednesday when you're not. So that's my focus, is to make sure the league goes on. We lost our 11U team. It's not going to crush the program, but it's going to hurt.
I'll say, and come high school, like that's an entire grade of kids that's not going into the high school program in a few years.
And the comment of they'll come back to play high school baseball. They might, or they might think they're really good and they want to pay even more to play in Iowa and play in Chicago, that area. Like that. This is real. This is happening. And if you look at the ISA roster, there's people driving hours to play baseball. Hours. From Michigan, from Milwaukee. Why are they coming from Milwaukee? Well, probably because they weren't good enough to play, this is recorded, but on the Brookfield area club, or they wanted to be the elite person here. So they're driving all that way to be on these club teams, and that draws the attention of my family and saying, hey, this kid's good. Have you seen him? We can go and play with him. Only to learn that they're on the whatever color team is below whatever the top color team is. But yeah, so for baseball, we were kind of split on it, and the main thing is we cannot afford to lose the in-kind services. We cannot afford to rent a ball diamond for a 4-year-old and a 5-year-old to go play t-ball. And if we don't have that, we don't have 7 and 8-year-olds. And if we don't have that, we don't have the 9 and 10-year-olds, and we don't have baseball. So they're going to look like a lot of the baseball fields in your small communities that are overgrown with weeds and nothing going on. It's really sad. But it's the state we're in, and our numbers keep declining, and we have some hard decisions to make very soon. So that's all I got.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions for baseball?
So here, it's not a matter of like some of the other clubs that you could potentially lose them to other clubs in the area. You're losing them to the ISA and
we are losing
that you can't do anything about.
And some of that's organic. We can't do it. We can't help it anyway, right? It doesn't matter if I have 400 kids playing. Someone's going to be, I can go get better playing time here. Better. More opportunity. I need them to see my kid. I need to drive to that place for them to see my kid. So
then I'm going to ask the other clubs. I know at an early age, you lose a lot of them to soccer because they get them young. I remember when my daughter was starting to play softball. They go after them young. What do you guys try to do to combat that, to keep the kids or get the kids to stay interested in baseball?
Baseball is, so I do have parents that reach out asking for the night to be changed. The reason we play the younger 2 divisions on Monday, Wednesday is because we do have a lot of kids that play the weekends for baseball, and we want to make sure that they don't burn their arms out. So you can't have a team pitch all weekend and then come in and pitch on Monday. To make it through a game, you need a number of pitchers, right? So it's a lot of the Tuesday, Thursday schedule is arm care, and that lines up with, I think, all the clubs in the area, all the baseball programs in the area for their older kids once they start pitching, Tuesday, Thursday, to protect the majority of their arms. We have looked at, and then I think we're going to start working with soccer to look at different opportunities. We're thinking about potentially doing a late season t-ball just to get them going. But league play is tough. We still need to work around with soccer with that because people ask all the time, hey, they play on the same night. We have to make a choice.
So, but I guess what I'm getting at is you haven't used anything like the weekly read or like contacting Rex. Hey, can you help us out? We're throwing something, put this on our social media.
So Ashley Hill is involved with getting out to the schools. We put a lot of mailers, a lot of flyers out, sent home in packets. We do need to do more, and that's about the more in-person stuff, and that's an initiative my vice president's going to take on this year, is getting kids to the schools dressed up, which should be the high school players, but that I can't control that. But we can work. But we're going to try and work with them on just a different approach. Because, like I said, 3 years ago, we had more kids during COVID than we do this year right now. Like, it's scary, and that's scary. They all had to wear masks and they were mad about it, but they still wanted to play baseball. So.
Scout is one of the few in the area that still allows sports to be played.
Yeah.
All those private clubs probably did it. So then they were all at home.
We'd rule the world. Nobody would even know what Ashwaubenon basketball was. Just kidding, AJ.
All right. Other questions for baseball by any of the park board members?
No, if not, well, is anybody here from Soccer?
She's on the beach.
Yeah.
Was she out of town?
They're, because they.
Unless you want to hear it.
Let me say something.
It's not gonna do what they do.
I do have one, and this might pertain to all the clubs too, when we talk about the volunteer requirement, okay? Obviously, volunteering is hard to do. One other thing too is it's hard to get board members, okay? And it's hard to get board members. I know there is a requirement for so many board members that
51% of
live in Ashwaubenon and not, that's tough to get. When we have a lot of open enrollment students, and I'm sure that everybody here, if you're an open enrollment student, we're in Ashwaubenon. Have everybody's best interest in Ashwaubenon. You're not trying to sink anything, that kind of stuff as well. So I don't know if there's a change to maybe our table, something like that.
That was probably changed.
Get them.
That was changed a ways back. It used to be a more stringent requirement, and it was dropped to 51%. Just only because if it's an Ashwaubenon organization that's co-sponsored by the village, we wanted to make sure Ashwaubenon parents were controlling the destiny of it, I guess maybe is the best way to say it.
So I only bring it up is what happens if you can't get 51% to volunteer their time on the board.
Then that would be up to park board and village board, but then the way the bylaws are currently written or the guidelines are currently written, you would lose co-sponsorship. As it's currently written.
So like a few years ago, Park and Rec had keep soccer afloat when there was turmoil with their board. And then we kind of worked to build it back up, and then we made sure we got it in the right hands with Melody taking over and kind of passed it back over.
Because that would probably, that would be our decision. We'd have to just basically say, well, you guys have to control it now, because if you can't get people to volunteer. Out of 44 parents, if you can't get, we're talking, you gotta have 5, and we'll add more seats if we have to.
How many of your kids are open enrolled versus residents?
For that, I do not have that information, but I can get that to you.
Yeah, please do.
Yep, I can. And the second thing that I didn't add before is we do have very nice wrestling facilities at our high school that we do use, and with possible changes going on at the high school, those may be getting bigger to house more kids and would be nicer. So with possible open co-sponsorship, that might bring in new kids to the district. That might bring in kids to, hey, I want to do this here because I like the facilities. I've created friendships and I want to continue that on. So just a possibility. Thank you.
If I could just ask a question, Josh Walter, my son had swimming lessons, is now under the guidance of Megan for club, and then as a freshman swims with Brian Wallace's son at high school. I guess I just don't understand why it's a slap on the hand for us if we're just asking for other people to join. Before, I think you had asked about baseball. You said, like, what do you see as like a major factor of like people leaving or not joining your club? And something I never understood was there's like a double standard with the Park and Rec where they have residents and non-residents in their swimming lessons, and they charge the non-residents extra money. And then we have those same families that they allow to do that for swim lessons. They ask to join our club, but then we have to turn them away. And that's every session that asks to join, and we have to tell them no. And that's stunting our growth. But yet we're a co-sponsor, and I thought it seems like the term that we help each other is out there, but it's actually like our heads are being held under the water and we're not able to grow because we're not allowed to take the exact same people that are having swim lessons that are into Pier or Ledgeview or wherever they're coming from, they're getting services at the pool. We're not allowed to take those exact same people who were just serviced a month prior by the Park and Rec to join our team, and I don't understand that.
It's a little bit different situation in that, number one, ours are classes with limited enrollment. Residents always get the priority with the early registration. And so if there's any extra spots left over, then we try and fill them up with the non-residents, which is always an option, that you could request for something like this.
We have that in our written part. So everybody knows that was our same
But
idea.
then it's not an open registration. Then you're limiting, like, okay, then you need to say, we have 100 people in our club. We've got 75 resident or open enrolled kids, so that means we can take 25 more.
That's what
That's
we
the
said.
whole thing. I mean, and that's an option to consider, or for the park board to consider as well. But then that stops here, like, we'll take as many as we can get.
We didn't.
Because
register as
that's not
many
how
as
park and
we-
rec classes are done. And with swim lessons, the residents get the priority, not open enroll, but the residents always get priority. I probably say 90% for swim lessons, 90 to 95% are Ashwaubenon residents. It fills up quick, and then we get the remainder of non-residents in, many of which are the kids that go to school there already that are open enrolled. We do have a couple kids that are just floating around. There's a couple open spots. But typically the higher number, lower level, whether it be tiny tot, level 1, 2, 3, they're almost all resident classes. It's when you get into the higher classes where they're not as full that you're getting more of the non-residents coming in, because that's where the openings are for that aren't taken by residents.
So that's
It's
what
a
I'm saying.
little bit different.
It's a double standard though, because you're allowing it, and we're begging for it, and you're telling us no, or you're threatening that you'll yank the money that you guys donate or the help that you're willing to give us because we're trying to do the exact same thing that you guys are doing. And how does that double standard exist?
But that's what we're working through tonight, aren't we? Trying to work through.
And then as the way
I hope.
proposed, if you look at our stuff, it's worded exactly the same way. I think we even mentioned 10%. So it's measured. Our growth
It's a
is-
floating 25%, that's what it's in here, so. I'm just gonna get a little crazy here, guys. Spitball, right? Write this down.
Before we move on, should we close the floor?
Oh, it's up to you, you're the boss.
I mean, are we done with the,
Yeah, I wanna ask you guys a question.
don't we want to make that motion?
Make a motion that we resume our regular scheduled
Close the
program.
floor.
Thank you, Ron.
All right, we have a motion, a second to close the floor. All in favor, say aye.
All right.
Aye. Opposed? Floor is closed. Thank you, folks.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
You're welcome to stay if you would like to.
I wouldn't. I'm over it, that's okay. We just wanted to discuss it.
Yeah, you can stay all in. Public.
Either that or you can go home and watch it on TV.
Yeah. Just don't watch it.
I was saying, you're going to the pool, right? And so, what if, I'm just throwing this out there, guys. Each of these organizations has their own board of directors, right? What if they decide
To do what?
if they want to open it or not for their organization? What if it's not even a decision that has to be made by the village and give the decision?
Well, the decision by the village isn't necessarily, I mean, if everyone wants it to be open, that's fine. I think the major decision then by the village, when it goes to village board, is whether or not they're going to be
Fiscal.
supported financially and with in-kind services.
Everybody would open.
Think so?
No, you
Why
got
not?
3 on here out of
I
the
was
6
saying, I
that
don't
say
think that-
no.
If there was no ramifications, why wouldn't you open?
I can think
Right?
of,
I mean,
I'm just looking at the survey results.
no, no, and you're right. But if Rex was gonna still turn my fields over and cut my lawn and chalk my lines, yeah, more the merrier. I'll take.
see, the
100.
tricky of it is, like, softball doesn't get that.
No.
Like, there are co-sponsored organizations that do not get that in kind. So, like,
Softball.
they get some.
Softball gets, sorry, now I just raised my voice there, I apologize. Softball gets the exact same
Oh,
benefits.
the
as
numbers
baseball.
look different. There was like 14,000, I think.
No.
No? Okay, then I misread that. My apologies.
They get the exact same
Okay.
thing. Now, softball takes all of their money for supplies, the 6,000 some dollars.
Mhm.
Baseball has 4,000 supplies, plus they wanted a couple $1,000 to go to paying for the umpires. And then in
Okay.
terms of in-kind services,
It's the same.
it's the same thing.
Then I misread that. My apologies.
That's all right. So both organizations probably get over $30,000 worth of in-kind and financial support services, probably closer to 35.
I couldn't even calculate it. I wouldn't even want. I don't even want to know.
So like for your tournaments, you don't have like groundskeep crew for your,
It's all about, it's forced volunteering.
okay,
And if your kid plays that weekend, you will hold a rake at some point in time, and you have no choice. That's
right, no, that's why I just wasn't sure what all the groundskeeping was that you were just like raking fields and stuff like that.
Well, so every weeknight it's done before we show up.
All the fields are prepped daily before. And then if there's a tournament on the weekend,
Thank you, I
typically,
misspoke, I apologize.
typically on Fridays, we prep the fields for the tournaments.
Hit all the lawns for us, and they take care of garbages twice for us on the weekends, and swab the bathrooms and whatnot for 2 tournaments. Yeah, the manpower alone.
Yeah.
The equipment, like we couldn't do it. We couldn't keep up on all that with just our volunteer because
Right.
we are stretched so thin with our.
I'm just trying to find what I read that to make sense in my own head then. Lord knows what's going on up there.
So like as far as baseball is concerned, if one of the kumbaya solutions would be, and this is just food for thought, if the individual sports is what really gets it. We're a team sport, we got all this stuff going on. The individual sports are suffering the most by the low enrollment. If I get down to one team, I'll find a way to play baseball with one team. I'll guarantee I can have 12 kids every year at the age group. But if wrestling has 10 kids, it doesn't even pay for a coach to go there for 10 kids. But they're going to because they love it and they love what they're doing. They care about the kids. Same with swimming. Like to have that pool, for a few kids as a coach, it's like, why, why am I showing up? But you do it for the kids, and that's the biggest part about it. I don't put in all the hours with baseball that I do because I want to play baseball someday. That's long gone. In fact, I never even played baseball, but
I'm going pro.
I do it because of my kids, and my kids aren't going to be in MLB. Sorry, Jagger, if you're listening, but it is what it is. It's for the kids. That's why we're all here. That's why we all do it. That's why everybody's here too. Is for the kids in the community. I think about if the ball diamonds are empty, what a sad sight it's going to be. That's why, for me, if it's a decision of the individual or wherever you want to draw it, they can do it, I'd be fully on board with them piloting this to see how it goes or whatever it takes. But that's kind of where I'm at.
So we can't turn those into pickleball courts then?
You got enough pickleball courts. Put them out of Cornerstone.
Splash pads for everyone.
So am I right in saying that any of these groups, they can open it up, they can open it up to,
They can choose to not be a co-sponsor organization,
but they would just lose our
correct.
possibly
Correct.
support.
Now, here, again, times have changed. This was 20 years ago that this happened. The village has always wanted, though, as much as possible, to have guidance to these organizations to make sure the correct decisions were being made to allow for the Ashwaubenon youth an equal opportunity to play. All right, so that's one of the reasons. So yeah, they can just say they want to go off on their own and become a private club. That's fine, but then the park and or village board always had that option to direct Park and Rec, which they had done in the past on occasion with football once and with soccer, to reform a new club, that would be similar to the original one, but now back under village control. And then that new club would be the one that gets the preferred field time type of a thing. But that's only because the best way for me to say this. Being involved in youth sports for a good part of my career, 40 years in park and recreation.
Few years.
A few years, right? While one board always has great motives, the next board may not. And they may totally change why they're making their rules for their own benefit versus for the benefit of the community as a whole. And that's what I think one of the foundation blocks were for all co-sponsor organizations being under village guidance per se, is to make sure that things are being done fairly and equitably for the youth of Ashwaubenon, and that there wasn't favorites being played, that everyone would have equal playing time, at least for the league, you know, if it was a league type of situation. So that's, you know, there's a lot of if and or type of things happening there of why we do the way we do it. If that makes sense. So yeah, they can go off on their own, but there's always that, well, the village may want to say, go ahead, but then now we're reforming that same sport with another village program. So, again, that's the way it was set up a long time ago. So obviously times have changed. So I don't know if that would be the same thing or not.
There were objections by the village board years ago about opening up to kids from outside the village because they were getting complaints from residents who were taxpayers. They were saying, why am I paying taxes to Ashwaubenon so that kids from Green Bay or Alloway or Howard or whatever can come and use our facilities and play here? And that was one of the arguments that they used against the opening it up to everybody.
Do you have any idea what other municipalities do in terms of co-sponsorship and
they usually don't.
Open enrollment?
That's what I was gonna say. I have done a lot of research. They do not co-sponsor.
They usually don't. I can tell you Ashwaubenon probably does more for their youth sports organizations than any community in Brown County.
So other municipalities would allow for non-resident, non-open enrollment?
Up to each individual club. I believe some of the other swim clubs in the area do. Green Bay Swim Club, I think, is open. I think the Howard Swamico Stormbreakers is open.
All of them are.
All of them are. But they also pay pool fees for the pool time, an hourly rate. And
which we pick up.
And then I believe their fees for individual swimming registration are higher than ours.
One aspect that I'd throw out that kind of ties into this indirectly is the fact that open enrollment is one of the things that's keeping us afloat in the school district as far as fees. And I could see we're allowing some of these other non-residents, such as Westy Pier, to come in, could lead to having more open enrollment people coming from those areas because they swam with the club, they went to high school, and they wanted to stay with their friends. So indirectly, I think there could be a benefit there.
Yeah, you'd have to check with the school district. I don't know if there are caps on that or not as far as open enrollment.
Well, it depends.
I mean, it's at 40% right now, so like the school district as a whole is open enrolled upwards of 40%.
40%.
Yes, it's a.
Like I say, we'd be hurting if we didn't have that. If you don't like your taxes right now.
It's actually astronomical compared to other school districts.
And another benefit, and I'll just make sure, is that like our clubs, we just serve 350 people in the gym on Sunday. There's no Packer game here, right? Like there's nothing going on, but I bet you a couple of these businesses are very happy that there's 350 guests here. And the swim meet coming up, you got some really big ones.
120.
Yeah, like.
And that's just the participants, that it wasn't.
Plus their
Right,
family.
so you figure youth sports, they're bringing a minimum of probably 4 people with them.
So
for each
like
kid.
my thing, and I've said it 6 times now probably in all these meetings, but like as a community, yes, they're gonna spend money, but it's gonna impact the majority of the residents. Plus, it's going to help the businesses that keep Ashwaubenon moving. Like I bring the tournament weekend, I could bring 5-6 teams that stay here. We book out blocks of hotel rooms. They stay here. Like they go to the Packers Pro Shop. They go to the restaurants. They go everywhere, and they support our concession stands all weekend. Like there are people that travel on these weekends, the tournaments and the swim meets. They dump tons of money in the community, and they're like, "Hey, we don't get to Green Bay often. We want to go here, here, and here," and they'll do it. And so, like, as far as the public's concerned, and maybe it was different when this was made because I don't think tourism was quite as big as it was, right? Tourism is a huge piece of Ashwaubenon right now. It's one of the only things that we don't have major businesses that keep us full. It's tourism. So yeah, we're a small drop in the bucket, but we keep a little bakery or retail store with a couple extra bucks in their pocket because we draw people in that are different people from the normal. So that's just one thing I want to get in there.
This will be, this item obviously is gonna be on next month's agenda, right? This is
Oh, yeah.
where we'll kind of hash all this out and have our discussions.
So the goal for the next agenda is to come up with a proposal to send to the
Make a
board.
recommendation to go to village board.
Okay.
I would
It might
suggest
be a
that
win.
be the only thing on the agenda.
From what
What's that?
I would suggest it be the only thing. on the-
I was thinking, let's keep everything else light,
Because-
because this will last a little while. It's a good discussion.
We've got a comment.
Yeah, Mark?
From what I hear from everybody is that all the programs seem to be short of participants, and that's why they're trying to open it up to. It's been a long time since I was involved with co-sponsored. I have 3 daughters and they played soccer and softball. Softball, I think the teams were allowed to have 13 players. And if that didn't come out to an even number of teams, then each team got 1 more player. And then if they still had some more, each team got another player. Then it got to the point where now we got enough for another team, so we made another team. I don't think that's happening nowadays. It looks like you're really scrambling to find participants.
Every year is super different. I mean, softball's doing okay this year, but not at every age group, I don't think. And that's the difference too. You can have like 10U right now is robust, but I think they're scrambling at like 12 and 14U, which is your high school feeder programs. So that's part of it too, is at what point do you start looking at your youth programs as like feeder programs for your high school? And what do you want to see from your high school athletic programs?
Like I said, it's been a while since I've been involved in this because my youngest daughter who played mostly softball, some soccer. Week before Christmas, she just turned 49. So
a few years ago.
It's been a few years, but that's why my observations are different. The way I experienced it from what you guys are experiencing it now.
I would say sports have gotten more individualized over the past few decades.
And part of it too is families are smaller. We don't have families with 3, 4, 5, 6 kids anymore.
There's a lot more sports out there.
And a lot more private clubs too that there weren't back in the day. I know my daughter does competitive cheer and I feel like she's got time for it. Just I'm right back from my letter right now.
So yeah, I guess next month we'll have a kind of a lengthy. This will take a little while, I think. It's okay.
I could break it up into sections.
Yeah, I just want to add just maybe some context and frame the thought process between now and next month. So I think Mark is hitting it on the head. It's really a question of demographics, right? You look at the community, you look at the district, you have a situation where it's correct at 40% open enrollment. Just simply don't have the demographics to generate the same population of interest in each individual sport that maybe you had it 20 years ago, right? And you're hearing that about peers, board members. So demographically, what the clubs are looking for is, can they add bodies to their club, right, to their organization? Competitors, parent volunteers, board members. Current policy restricts that, right? So the committee is looking to make a recommendation on how it can potentially open that conversation up demographically to allow more people in. Now, the question is, from the board's perspective, is going to be, do we allow for taxpayer monies, taxpayer dollars, to subsidize non-taxpaying residents from participating in the clubs? So you just frame it in those two aspects, right? So if you're looking at it just strictly demographically, will you open up the policy to allow more participation regardless of where they reside? And then what are you going to do about the funding? Recognizing that the board is going to question that recommendation of whether taxpayer dollars should go towards a non-resident participant. And maybe there are alternatives, there's solutions, there are examples that could be used that could provide for that, right? So, and I'm not throwing this out there as an example, but it's an idea or a recommendation. But if you have, and maybe the clubs all do this currently, but you have a registration fee for Ashwaubenon residents, you have a non-resident registration fee, similar to what Park and Rec does with swimming lessons. And the goal of that is to make sure that that fee is accurate or commensurate with the fact that they're not a taxpayer, right, in the system. So maybe there's a way to do that. Yeah, just throwing that out contextually, that you're really are framing that conversation of looking at the policy, what do you allow, and then understanding that the board will probably have concerns if you say Ashwaubenon taxpayer dollars should go towards subsidizing programming for non-taxpaying individuals, right? So just think about that over the course of the next month and how you're going to kind of work through that issue as you make your final recommendation.
Wow. Charging a foot fee on this new trail extension thing for non-tax.
Sure. Foot fees?
Yeah. $5 a step.
A bicycle fee, right? A rider fee for the bicycle.
I will be
Tracy's
standing.
not here to defend herself.
say that to Tracy.
A spoke fee. A spoke fee on your bike.
Want them big tires? It's gonna cost you extra.
All right. All right, 7E, receive and accept the February Park Rec and Forestry Department reports. I'll take a motion on that. Unless somebody has anything they want to discuss with Rex on that?
Yeah, unless there's questions, we really don't need a motion.
Oh, don't need motion on it to accept it?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Just the department.
Receive and accept is fine.
So you only
Don't
need
need
to
motion.
see on your acceptor.
Well, motion to receive and accept the report.
Right.
So that it's.
So moved.
All right, second?
Second.
Okay.
No, I want to see
All
that
right,
hang up.
so we have a motion and a second to receive and accept the February Park Rec report. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, none. It is so done. Items for next agenda, I think we know what we're doing. All right, take a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right, motion and a second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed,